we plan to do this on the Democratic side, both in the House and in the Senate, to intensify the pressure on the Trump administration to comply. Contempt can be directed at a variety of different members of the Trump administration, including but not limited to the Secretary of State and or his or her designees, and the Secretary of Homeland Security.
What does holding them in contempt mean or do?
Well, it depends on what kind of contempt, but before you even get there, I mean, let me first say, contempt can be anything from a fine to actually putting somebody themselves in federal custody in jail for defying a court order. We've seen, for example, in the last administration, during the January 6th investigation, 2 people that were close to President Trump being indicted and then convicted for contempt of Congress, for example, because they wouldn't answer a congressional subpoena. Obviously, this is a little bit different. But before we even get to the question of contempt, you have to figure out who is the person who is actually defying the court order. You can't just take it all the way to the top and say, it must be the President of the United States, who we all know is also subject to this very broad presidential immunity decision. There will have to be some fact-finding, even if Judge Zinnes wants to hold someone in contempt, to decide exactly, as Judge Boasberg said in a similar proceeding a couple of weeks ago, where does the contempt lie? Who's responsible?
This is a bigger case, I think, than this one person. Multiple investigative reports, I think most recently in the New York Times, show that Albrego Garcia's case may be just the tip of the iceberg. A majority of the men deported to this El Salvador prison, they find, do not have criminal records, nor is there proof tying them to a criminal gang. Are there larger implications for a lot of different people, whether they're there or could be sent there?
It's not often in a country that's only 250 years old, basically, that we actually cite the Magna Carta. But we're at the 1,010-year anniversary of the Magna Carta. And I'm reading from the Supreme Court's interpretation of the Magna Carta, which says, the root principle is that in a civilized society, the government must always be accountable to the judiciary for a person's imprisonment. It is as fundamental as the Magna Carta, which is as fundamental as it gets. So, Krista, the answer to your question is yes, absolutely. This is not about one individual. It is certainly about that one individual, but it is also about the possibility that if you allow the executive the opportunity to imprison people without process, that is the fundamental thing that breaks down the rule of law.
And we may not just be talking about people from other countries. There was an exchange captured on camera between Presidents Trump and Bukele. Let me play that.
I said, homegrowns are next. The homegrowns, but you got to open up 5 more places. Yeah, that's great. All right.
President Trump has suggested that there could be people in this country who, for various crimes, should be sent there. He wants him to expand the number of cells available. He said maybe do 5 of them. Is sending an American-born citizen overseas legal?
No, it's not. I mean, what differentiates us as citizens from immigrants is that we have the right not to be expatriated, except in the circumstance where you commit a crime in another country and the U.S. has an extradition treaty with that country. For example, if I commit a crime in Mexico, then the U.S. might have a treaty with Mexico that demands that I be sent to Mexico to face accountability for my crimes. But absent that, absent a conviction in that other country, a U.S. citizen cannot be sent to another country simply for crimes committed here. And by the way, Chris, we don't even know if Donald Trump is talking about people who have been convicted. When he talks about the members of Tren de Aragua, for example, and calls them rapists and murderers, he's oftentimes, as you just noted, talking about people who have no conviction, for example. They are alleged members of Tren de Aragua. They are alleged criminals. There is no proof in any of these cases that we are talking about that people have actually committed a crime that would justify putting them in prison in this country, much less in another.
Lisa Rubin, James Sample, thank you both so much.